Long before colonial boots touched the red clay of southeastern Nigeria, the Igbo people lived by a sacred duality, Odinala and Omenala. Far beyond what the West dismissively labeled tribal religion, Odinala was a metaphysical framework, an indigenous code that explained the universe, morality, and purpose. It mapped out a person's chi, personal spiritual double, their destiny, Akra aka, and the laws of cosmic harmony. Omenala, on the other hand, governed human action, customs, taboos, rights, and social expectations. It was how the sacred was lived daily. Where Odinala told you the why, Omenala instructed the how. Together, they formed a comprehensive system that wove spiritual belief into social law, family structure, economy, and governance. At the heart of Odinala is equilibrium. Every act, whether planting a seed, taking an oath, or resolving a conflict, was seen as a negotiation with both nature and the ancestors. The Igbo believed that moral imbalance could cause illness, crop failure, or community chaos. This is why the proverb, "Egbe bear you go bear, let the eagle perch, let the hawk perch," carried constitutional weight. Coexistence wasn't just preferred, it was mandated by cosmic order. Personal ambition, aka, was applauded, but never at the expense of communal harmony. That's why a man who gained wealth without honoring the land or his ancestors could be ostracized or spiritually afflicted. The custodians of this cosmic order were not kings or prophets but dibia, spiritual healers and diviners, ndi ichi, elders, and women priestesses. They interpreted divine signs, diagnosed misfortunes, and ensured that the living walked in step with the dead. Sacred symbols, like the ofo stick, were not decorative, they were physical embodiments of ancestral justice. Holding an ofo meant standing as a vessel of truth, rooted in generational memory. Time itself was viewed cyclically, not linearly. The dead were not gone. They were advisors, judges, and witnesses to the living. Contrary to colonial stereotypes, the Igbo did not worship idols. They revered spiritual forces represented through nature, Allah, Earth Mother, Amadioha, thunder and justice, Ekwensu, negotiator of chaos and decision-making, and others. These were not pagan gods, but functional forces of moral law and cosmic balance. Through trance, ritual, and divination tools like Afa, the Dibia acted as a bridge between spiritual and physical realms. Their purpose wasn't just to heal the sick, but to restore cosmic balance. In a world hungry for meaning, sustainability, and ethical leadership, Odinala and Omenala reveal a forgotten African blueprint for living with purpose and integrity. These weren't relics of a superstitious past, they were structured systems of morality, accountability, and harmony. In the face of colonial erasure and religious demonization, they remain a profound reminder that the answers to humanity's biggest questions have long been rooted in the soil of indigenous wisdom. Long before democracy took root in Western political thought, the Igbo people practiced a sophisticated, indigenous system of governance rooted in consensus and communal representation. They lived in acephalous societies, headless systems with no central king. Power was decentralized, decisions were made collectively, and leadership rotated among age grades, lineage elders, and titled citizens. Authority flowed from the people, not down from a throne. Every adult had a voice, and the village assembly, AMA, served as the heart of political life. This wasn't chaos. It was order without hierarchy, democracy in its raw, ancestral form. The AMA was more than a gathering space, it was the crucible of civic life. Under the open sky, villagers debated matters ranging from land disputes to marriage customs. Elders, Ndi Ichi, offered wisdom, but were not immune to challenge. Age-grade groups acted as grassroots enforcement agencies, maintaining roads, enforcing bylaws, and organizing defense. Women played crucial roles too. Groups like the Omo-Ada, Daughters of the Lineage, and Otu-Inyandi, Married Women's Associations, could initiate protests, call out abuses, and wield significant moral authority. Their interventions weren't symbolic, they were system-changing. Leadership was never inherited. It was earned through service, generosity, and moral standing. Titled positions like Onowu or Ozo holders came with public obligations, hosting communal feasts, resolving conflicts, redistributing wealth, and preserving justice. These leaders were held accountable by the same public that elevated them. Failure to live up to expectations could result in removal of title, a public disgrace worse than death to a man of honor. Igbo political philosophy rejected autocracy and revered shared power. The guiding principle was clear: no one governs alone. Colonial Britain misunderstood this flexible system. Confused by the lack of monarchs, they created warrant chiefs. A disastrous move that violated the Igbo spirit of consensus. This imposed hierarchy sparked resistance, most notably the 1929 ABA Women's Riot. Thousands of women, guided by ancestral memory and communal justice, shut down colonial impositions using song, dance, and civil disobedience. Their revolt wasn't just anti-tax, it was pro-democracy, a reclaiming of indigenous political structure in the face of imperial distortion. In a modern world grappling with broken institutions and authoritarian creep, the Igbo system stands as a forgotten mirror, proof that democracy is not a Western gift but a universal seed. The Igbo cultivated a society where voice, not violence, built consensus, where leadership meant service, not status. Long before Athens, the red earth of Igboland was already nurturing a republic of its own, without marble, without kings, but rich in wisdom and accountability. In Igbo culture, wisdom isn't just spoken, it is encoded, layered, and passed down like sacred technology. The people mastered the art of embedding truth in symbols, parables, and proverbs that still echo with astonishing clarity today. A simple saying like, "Anayamu amu nauka," wisdom is learned in conversation, captures the cultural reverence for dialogue as a source of insight. Oral tradition was never just storytelling, it was an archive of philosophy, ethics, history, and survival. Each proverb was a law, a memory capsule, a moral compass. In a world with no written constitutions, these verbal artifacts governed everything from justice to parenting. The use of metaphor was deliberate and strategic. Igbo myths about the tortoise, mbe, are not childish fables, they're critiques of cunning, ego, greed, and consequence. The tortoise, often outsmarting others, always pays a price. These stories taught generations to value character over cleverness, and humility over ambition. Mythology wasn't fictional, it was functional. Tales of Ekwensu taught negotiation in the face of chaos. Stories of Amadioha reinforced that truth strikes like lightning, sudden and unavoidable. Every tale had purpose. Every symbol, from kola nuts to masquerades, was a vessel of memory and warning. Language itself was spiritual. Names weren't casual, they carried cosmological meaning. Shinanso, God is near, Obina, Father's heart, or Neka, Mother is supreme, reflected belief, identity, and ancestry. Even silence had weight in Igbo wisdom, it was a form of speech, a tool for thought. Elders often cautioned, "Ani ajuju anagi fu yuzo," he who asks questions does not lose his way. Inquiry, debate, and philosophical reflection were daily acts. The village square was not just political, it was intellectual, a symposium beneath the trees. Writing may not have been widespread, but the Igbo developed visual language systems too. Uli art, traditionally used by women, was more than decoration. These flowing, abstract symbols painted on walls and skin carried sacred meanings, telling stories of fertility, honor, and cosmic order. Uli was the written word in aesthetic form, proving that literacy can exist outside alphabetic systems. Even body scarification, facial marks, and masquerade patterns functioned as social text, recording lineage, titles, and spiritual status. To outsiders, these modes of communication may seem invisible, but to the Igbo, they formed a deeply encoded universe of meaning. The wisdom wasn't buried in books, it lived in conversation, in symbols, in rhythm, and ritual. It was not only about preserving memory but sharpening perception. In a modern world overloaded with noise and shallow media, Igbo wisdom reminds us that true knowledge is often layered, patient, poetic, and hidden in plain sight. To the Igbo, the universe is not random, it is a sacred ecosystem maintained by unseen forces, ancestral presence, and moral law. At the center of this cosmic balance stands Ala, the Earth Mother, goddess of fertility, morality, and justice. She is not just a deity, she is the very soil, the breath of the land, the conscience of the people. Every oath, every ritual, every birth and burial is made in her presence. Offending Allah isn't just a spiritual crime, it is a social one, punishable not only by the gods but by the community itself. In Allah, ecology, ethics, and eternity converge. She is both womb and judge. The Igbo spiritual system is polyphonic, not polytheistic. It does not elevate a hierarchy of gods but recognizes a network of forces, each governing a specific domain of life. Chukwu, the supreme creator, is the distant spark, too vast, too sacred to approach directly. Instead, divine interaction flows through lesser spirits like Amadioha, thunder and justice. Ekwensu, conflict and choice, and Enyamu, the sun and illumination. These are not gods, in the Western sense but embodiments of principle and power. They are activated through ritual, appeased through sacrifice, and interpreted by the Dibia, the spiritual intermediaries, herbalists, and diviners. The chi, often misunderstood, is one of the most profound elements of Igbo metaphysics. It is a personal spiritual double, your guardian force, your destiny partner. Every person is born with a chi, and it shapes the arc of their journey. Success is not just luck, it's a sign that one's chi is strong and aligned. But alignment must be maintained through upright living, sacrifice, and constant reflection. The proverb "Ani qui, chia equi," if one agrees, their chi agrees, shows how fate and free will dance together in Igbo thought. You are not just a soul, you are a co-creator of your path. Ritual life reinforces this cosmic order. Birth ceremonies, title initiations, yam festivals, ancestral veneration, and purification rites are not empty tradition, they are spiritual maintenance. The masquerade, manwu, isn't a performance, it is a temporary embodiment of ancestral or spirit energy. When the mask dances, the ancestors are speaking. Sacred groves, oracles like the Abini Akpabi of Arachukwu, and divination sessions with Afa are not superstition, they are indigenous systems of insight, moral arbitration, and healing. These practices bind the seen and unseen in an eternal dialogue. What emerges from the Igbo spiritual worldview is a deeply ethical universe, where the earth is sacred, the ancestors are watching, and every human choice echoes beyond the physical. It is a theology of accountability, rooted in respect for nature, memory, and destiny. In an era of spiritual confusion and ecological collapse, the Igbo remind us that the divine is not above or beyond, but beneath our feet, within our breath, and always listening. Across Nigeria and beyond, Igbo traders are legendary for their business acumen, street wisdom, and entrepreneurial drive. But behind their success lies a centuries-old system so effective it's now studied by economists worldwide, the Igbo apprenticeship model, locally known as Igbo Boy. This isn't just mentorship, it's an economic philosophy rooted in community uplift, intergenerational wealth, and trust. Young boys, often from humble homes, are adopted by established traders who teach them every aspect of commerce, from customer relations to risk-taking. It is practical, oral, and deeply human, business school without the building. Unlike formal education systems that charge students for knowledge, the Oga, master, in Igbo boy invests in the apprentice's future with no upfront payment. For 5 to 7 years, the apprentice works under his master, learning through immersion. At the end of the term, if he proves loyal and hardworking, the master settles him, providing startup capital, inventory, and sometimes a shop. This is not charity, it's a social contract. The new graduate is expected to grow, succeed, and, most importantly, do the same for others. Through this ripple effect, empires are built, one apprentice at a time. The genius of this system lies in its embedded values. Trust is the currency. Reputation is everything. A master who cheats his apprentice faces public shame and spiritual consequence. An apprentice who steals or dishonors the trade can be expelled and blacklisted. No lawyers. No contracts. Just ancestral ethics and community oversight. This trust economy has birthed some of Africa's biggest markets, from Alaba International in Lagos to Ariaria in ABA. In fact, when international NGOs want to understand scalable business ecosystems, they study Igbo trade networks, not Harvard theories. Igbo boy is not just economic, it is cultural. It reinforces resilience, humility, and deferred gratification. Apprentices often live with their masters, absorbing discipline as much as strategy. They wake early, sweep shops, negotiate with suppliers, and observe customer psychology in real time. They learn to calculate profits mentally, track debts instinctively, and hustle ethically. For many Igbo families, success is not defined by degrees, but by how many people you've empowered. It's not uncommon to hear, "He has settled 5 boys, a badge of honor louder than any PhD." In a world obsessed with individualism, the Igbo apprenticeship model offers a radical alternative: wealth through responsibility, not exploitation. It's capitalism with a conscience, designed not just to enrich individuals, but to elevate communities. While banks demand collateral, the Igbo system demands character. In today's unstable job market, this indigenous framework proves that the future of enterprise may lie, not in Wall Street, but in the crowded stalls of Onitsha and the enduring spirit of Igbo brotherhood. Igbo life unfolds like a rhythm, marked by significant rituals that connect the individual to the community and the cosmos. Every stage of life, birth, growth, marriage, death, and rebirth, is celebrated through ceremonies that are deeply spiritual and communal. These rites are not just about tradition but serve as sacred contracts with ancestors, affirmations of identity, and collective milestones. Each ritual is a vital thread in the rich tapestry of Igbo culture, and to partake in them is to affirm one's place in the continuity of existence. The journey begins with birth. Once a child is born, a naming ceremony is held, where elders choose a name based on the child's birth circumstances or ancestral connection. Names like Chidera, what God has written, and Ifeoma, good thing, are not random, they are prophetic, guiding the child's future. As the child grows, they join age grades, which help instill discipline and responsibility. Puberty marks a transition into adulthood with rituals that may include body art, ear piercing, and special feasts, each marking their new place in the community. Marriage is one of the most important rites in Igbo culture, seen as a union of 2 families, not just 2 individuals. It involves several stages: Iku Aka, knocking on the door, Ime Ego, bride price negotiation, and Igbenku, the traditional wine-carrying ceremony. The bride's role as a cultural transmitter is emphasized throughout, and the wine-carrying ceremony is a powerful symbol of public commitment and respect. These rituals are filled with deep meaning, not just marking the bond between the couple but ensuring the perpetuation of legacy and tradition. Festivals are the heart of the Igbo calendar, with the New Yam Festival, IRIG, being the most celebrated. This festival marks the harvest and expresses gratitude for prosperity. During the celebration, the first yams of the season are blessed and offered to ancestors, before being shared with the community. Other festivals honor deities and ancestors, commemorate historic events, and celebrate the cycle of life. The air is filled with music, dance, and feasting, as the entire community gathers in joy and reverence for the divine forces that govern their lives. Death in Igbo thought is not an end but a transition. Funerals, especially for elders and titled individuals, are elaborate and spiritually significant. Rituals vary based on age and status, but common elements include animal sacrifices and family mourning. The second burial ceremony, Iko-Muo, is a significant event, held years later to ensure the deceased's full transition to the ancestral realm. Through these rites, the Igbo affirm that life and death are part of an eternal cycle, where each soul continues to influence the living long after their physical journey ends. When the British arrived on Igbo soil, they encountered a society rich in culture, wisdom, and self-sufficiency. However, colonialism sought to disrupt these foundations. From imposing foreign governance to enforcing Christianity, the British aimed to dismantle Igbo identity. What they underestimated was the resilience of the Igbo people. Despite colonial pressures, the Igbo's connection to their ancestors and traditions remained unbroken, and they would not yield without resistance. Colonial governance replaced the Igbo's decentralized democratic structure with warrant chiefs, appointed figures who were often disconnected from the needs of the people. The British system was corrupt and ignored Igbo meritocratic traditions. This led to unrest, exemplified in the 1929 ABA Women's Revolt. Women took the lead, protesting unfair taxes. Their revolt wasn't just a fight against taxes, it was a declaration of the Igbo people's refusal to lose their voice and agency, even under colonial rule. Despite the efforts to erase Igbo culture, many continued their spiritual practices in secret. While the missionaries attempted to replace indigenous beliefs with Christianity, the Igbo maintained their reverence for Allah, Earth Goddess, and their ancestral rites. These practices, passed down through oral tradition and hidden rituals, ensured the survival of Igbo culture. When the colonial system weakened, the Igbo people were ready to reclaim and revitalize their identity, standing strong with the knowledge their ancestors had kept alive. Following Nigeria's independence, the Igbo people reasserted their cultural pride. The Biafran War, though tragic, symbolized their fight for autonomy. Even in the face of genocide, the Igbo refused to be erased. Today, the revival of Igbo culture is evident in art, literature, and entrepreneurship. Figures like Chinua Achebe and Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala embody the intellectual and cultural strength of the Igbo people. The legacy of Biafra endures in the Igbo's drive to excel and influence globally. In a world that sometimes undervalues indigenous cultures, the Igbo stand as proof that survival is not just about endurance but about reinvention and connection to one's heritage. From the celebration of the New Yam Festival to the flourishing of Igbo businesses and cultural expressions, the Igbo have shown that no force, not even colonialism, can extinguish their civilization. They are thriving, not just surviving, a living testament to the power of heritage. In conclusion, the Igbo people have long demonstrated that wisdom, governance, and trade are not foreign imports but intrinsic parts of their culture, deeply embedded in the sacred principles of Odinala and Omenala. Their democratic spirit, grounded in communal decision-making, and their innovative apprenticeship model have shaped not only their own communities but also the global stage. The resilience of their spiritual beliefs, combined with an unbreakable bond to their ancestors, has ensured the survival and thriving of their heritage against all odds. The Igbo have proven that the strength of a people lies not in domination, but in unity, wisdom, and collective empowerment. We invite you to delve deeper into the rich and often hidden truths about the Igbo people. Like, comment, share, and subscribe for more captivating insights into the untold history of Ndi Igbo, the trailblazers of Africa's past, present, and future.